Hi, beautiful souls. Namaste. Welcome. Welcome back to our discussion of the swords. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am and have been slowly journeying through a variety of contemporary and older Tarot de Marseille decks and looking at each of the suits. This is a year-long journey where I will be reflecting on Tarot de Marseille and incorporating these cards more into my readings and looking at how certain pip decks carry or do not carry similar energy to the Tarot de Marseille and how I may or may not read with them. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge. We've been having some great discussions, and I hope that you can join in the conversation as well. And today I have also decided I'm going to add something else to the mix, and that is to look at the related majors as well too. So if you are new, welcome. My name is Sadhana, and I have been reading for a long time and playing with all kinds of tarot since my children were really little. And well over 25 years ago. And I've just really enjoyed this journey. It's one that is ongoing. It is, there's just ever so much to learn and to contemplate. And I really appreciate all of your contributions as well, too. So welcome. So we finished off last time, I think, with the Seven of Swords, and we will go back and of course, look at the 8, 9, 10 of Swords. And I've got different decks on the table today. So we have on the left is the Wild Unknown, which is, of course, is not a Tarot de Marseille. And then the Marshmallow Marseille. And then this is the Jodorowsky Cam1 deck. And then is Patrick Valenza's very popular Triomphe de la Luna. I do have Yonasa Yos here if we need it. And I have the majors from the Marshmallow Marseille as well as the this deck as well too. And so last week our discussion began with the hand and the way that the sword is held, the way that the sword is presented. And so that is something that we can really, I think, add to the discussion, because if we are contemplating the magician or le bateleur or what other names might this go in Marseille? The bateleur primarily, I think. This card comes up more as a like as a real magician, rather than how I see the magician in the Waite-Smith deck. And I want to honor this number one and this idea of initiation. Hello to Clevis and to Dee. Namaste. And the question of the choices that we have here with this sword. When we add 1 plus thought plus sword plus mind plus voice, there is an immense number of abilities. I mean, sorry, not abilities. There is an immense number of directions that an interpretation of the card could go. But there's something kind of important about understanding the energy of the magician in terms of this card. And then another really important one is La Force. And I think the question of how are we going to wield this sword, and through what action are we going to wield it? I really like that deck D, the Cam1 Jodorowsky. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so clear, and I love the primary colors. Um, and we'll look through all of the swords today. There is a third major as well too, and that is the one of the world card. Now, this might seem different for those of you that read the major association by reduction. And in the practice of Tarot de Marseille, I think for the most part, the correspondences are by the second number in the card. So what is one? It's a beginning, and at the beginning we certainly have the whole potential, but we don't know how it's going to unfold. So I think this is a card of caution as well too. I think we need to be careful how we are holding it. And I honestly, it's so funny. I mean, can you see the drop of blood on the pinky finger here? This reminds me of, what is that? It reminds me of when I was a kid going to the doctor and having blood drawn from my finger for I forget what. And I think about, drinking a cup of tea with your pinky out. I have no idea. I mean, what do you read into this pinky sticking out? And I know there's a bit of tongue in cheek in this deck, but I think there's also always something much, much deeper. And I want to be cautious with this. And when I see this card in combination with the Page of Swords, the Cavalier of Swords, I want to remember that we are early in the journey and we may not have this all together. And simultaneously, it is so courageous. I mean, this is a bunch of young men on the battlefield charging towards each other. Diabetics do that to check their blood sugar. Wow, okay, so what can we read into that? What can we read into that, right? So, I mean, this could be great fun to look at it from that point of view. I'm always looking for funky little health connections to reading in the tarot. Yeah. So I just offer that. And if strength is a card that goes with this card, then it has this underlying energy of encouragement to pick it up and to be brave and to but also to move from a place of truth. And I think that is critical here. Let us move from a place of truth, your inner truth, that which informs you, that which drives you. Yeah, I'm going to go through these quite quickly, and then we'll slow down when we get to the numbers we didn't look at last week. I like that we have the full moon here. We have sort of a nodding to the moon or the lunar decan of this card when we're looking in a Waite-Smith area, in a Waite-Smith viewpoint. But the other thing about this card is the fullness and the lushness of the growth, because there is so much space, and space in the mind. Yes, happy full moon to all of you too. Yeah, space in the mind. And what happens if you regard this, now I feel like I'm speaking French. If you regard this card in terms of the papesse, here's the marshmallow papesse. The priestess of the temple. And I like this correspondence. There's something about the two of mind, and I know the priestess is traditionally associated with water, but I like this idea of the spaciousness here in this card. And this reminder that, yes, La Papesse underlies this energy, but also we have that moment or those opportunities, could be months at a time, where, we take time for inner reflection. And Le Pendu as a two also. And again, often it's a Neptune card. It's got that water association. But I think it informs this two of swords so well. And it helps me to understand why in Waite-Smith this is a lunar decan, and why we have the moon in this card, why there's so much water in this sword card. And this is not even going into those discussions, about older decks and this suit representing water. But it really does. It really does help to read with these references. And so I offer this up because when we're working with Tarot de Marseille, let's get away from the associations by reduction and just work with the numbers themselves. Okay. Kim Kranz in her Two of Swords has an eclipse, a solar eclipse. And I don't know if I can. So the moon comes forward, the lunar energy comes forward. So this is a new moon. It's a new right, still early in the journey, in the intellectual journey. But it puts a different spin on it, doesn't it? With that idea of eclipse energy. But I like that she has the new moon there. That I mean, I have an affinity for this deck, and I appreciate the symbols that are included in it for sure. So three. One of the things I like about the Tarot de Marseille in terms of three and association with the Empress is that it reminds me that the Empress is the counterpart of the Emperor. It's likely that the Imperatrice knows how to wield a sword. It's likely that the Imperatrice holds a degree of power, a power of voice and intellect and mind and clarity. And for me, this exercise is really important. And I don't know why I didn't do it with the other suits before, but I think we can learn something more about the minor cards when we remember the underlying energy. Now we also have death here, the 13th arcanum as well too. And so what I see with that particular card is that central sword. It's like it's making a decision to cut through something. Um when we see a scythe in a death card, I don't know what we have in this one. Um for me, it is important that when this 13th arcanum arises, we face the complete, or um, hmm, we can't go back. We can't go back. And I know, and energetically and spiritually, yes, we can walk between the veils and the worlds and so forth. But there's something about this 13th arcanum that wants us to grow through the power of this change. And if we face this change, if we admit this change, if we voice it, then we will grow. Because aren't threes all about growth? And yeah, the swords cut. They can draw blood. The words can hurt. They can tug at our heartstrings for sure. But if we persevere through this, there's so much that we can accomplish. And I like that this isn't too fussy in this card. It feels to me like the Empress is more, and maybe we'll do this more in comparing some of the Waite Smith Empresses to Marseille Empresses later down the road, but the Imperatrice feels like she's more down to business. It's not so much about the pregnant woman relaxing in the garden sort of thing, you know? Like, she's a leader. She knows how to hold a sword. And maybe this is about growth through leadership, growth through voice, growth through it's funny, Clevis, we just came off the Vishuddhi throat chakra class, and this is a really important card for the throat chakra. Don't you think? I think a lot. Okay. 4 of Swords. So we go back to the even numbers. And I want to apologize. I haven't caught up on my comments from last week. So I'm not ignoring you. I will get to your comments if I haven't replied to your comments. So we go back to an even number. There's a sense of receptivity and calmness. Yeah. I like what Dee says here. She is. She's a powerful woman, and she can negotiate with the Queen of Swords, you know? I like the way she's depicted in the Marseille. So here we go back to the receptivity, the even numbers, more of a sense of harmony. So 4, right? Stability of mind. Stability of mind. So find your favorite keyword for the number 4. Let me just throw some out there. What about safety? What about safety through um, safety through organization, safety through security and control in its positive qualities? So we by creating order, we create um, clarity of thought. So, how does the emperor help us do that? And in a way, so this is kind of interesting, actually. Um, when, and I find this fascinating. So the emperor is connected to a receptive number. And when we allow the emperor to rule and to take charge, it gives us space to look after our own stuff. You know, we don't have to worry about the order because it's taken care of. And I think there's a really interesting balance here of the effects of the four of the emperor and the even receptive number of the four. It's like, thanks to the four, we have this base. Okay, and then our other four is temperance, right? And what does that teach us? And also remember that in the Tarot de Marseille, the older ones anyway, the four is depicted as a 1-1-1-1, not as a 1B. So you see the 1-1-1-1, and then you see the 1-1-1-1 there. Yeah. In order to know this safety, in order to have, and even in the Tarot de Marseille, sometimes I think of these fours as sacred space, personal space, but he can be a bit stuffy and traditional. Yeah. But the thing I was picking up on, Dee, is that he can kind of be over in his chambers doing his stuffy and traditional stuff, but I can count on him. And for a time anyway, and I think this is key to the fours, for a period of time anyway, I don't have to worry because I know things are going to be okay. And of course, with the emperor, we have to be careful of, and not necessarily martial energy and Tarot de Marseille, but the qualities of martial energy where things just are a little bit too dictatorial. And I don't think that's an issue here. That's certainly more of an issue with an abundance of batons in a reading. But this is a good card, and I think it's a good card to remember how to achieve temperance is also through discernment, right? We need to have clear thinking in order to find that balance, that harmony. And then we get into the middle where things get a little messy in some of the decks anyway. Notice how Marshmallow, the sword is down, no, the V is up, so that's the right way. And quite a bit of blood on the sword in the Marshmallow. The sword is red, very energetic in the traditional deck. And I like the fact that Kim, chose an earthworm because we all know what happens when an earthworm is cut into two pieces. What is your takeaway from the Hierophant here? Like, I think this is a really good suit to start this sort of a discussion of relative connections. And of course, then we have the double as well, too. When I look at these cards together, I'm reminded of the challenges of the journey. I want to go back to Dee's comment. Sorry, I didn't. Temperance must mix up the 4 square power. Ooh, that's a very good point, right? So we can't stay too comfortable in the 4. Things must. Good point. So here in this 5, I am reminded. So if you look at the sword in this deck here, that's facing upward, it looks a lot like the Ace of Swords. The way that it's full charged with energy. It's red. And you'll notice that it's got quite a bit of red in Patrick Valenz's deck as well, too. It still has a fair amount of space with which to move. But the 5, there's some important decisions to make here. And we need to be informed. Don't you think? We need to be informed, and we need to know something about where our information is coming from. And I find 5 of Swords often comes up when we are not thinking. We are not thinking, or we're, we are reacting. So when I see the 5 of Swords, I'm thinking, yeah, we want to check our sources. Read the footnotes. Read between the lines in order to make good decisions. And isn't this interesting how this sword is kind of like, could you say it's reading between the lines? It's cutting between the lines. It's cutting through. It's also cutting through what we saw in the 4. And I shared that with you last week. Like, I feel like in this one, the 2 and the 2, it's like the fruit opening. And we're going to be a little raw here. It is going to fall open, and our bits are going to be exposed. Much like, the earthworm there is cut in half, quite literally. Six. Okay, I want to just read a couple of other notes here. I need to go back. So if 6 is the perfect number, 6 is a place of harmony and balance, and we all know mathematically, scientifically, what a great number this is. Esoterically, it's a magical number. Magic I usually associate with 7, but I mean here, it's an incredible number. It's so centered. It's so centered, and it's a lovely place to be. We've gone through the um, opening, the awakening of the 5, and here we are. You know what this feels like to me? It's like when you learn to meditate and you finally have that first breakthrough, and then you go to sit down to meditate the next day, and it's like you drop in right away, and it's all just kind of wow, wow. Now I know what this is about. I've always felt a lot of spirit in this card. Patrick Valenza has an all-seeing eye in this one. And I'm not sure that I've thought about this Six of Swords in terms of meditation before. Um, I don't know what it's like for you, but for me in meditation, the images tend to change quite quickly. And I often see this kind of a screen in meditation, not usually black, sometimes usually purple, but interesting to think about these cards in that way. So what are the associated majors, and how might they add to or redirect the energy of how a card is being interpreted? And many of you have followed me through lots of deck deep dives, and I do this usually the lower number and then by reduction. But this is something that I've always done. And one of the things that I say to tarot students as well, too, is that even though this major arcanum may not appear in the reading, you can reflect on its energy and see how that card is informing this card. The choice. And the choice here is we will talk about this later, but yeah. How's my life going to change if I choose this young woman here and I get married? I'm going to have to grow up. There's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made, and my life might not be as peaceful as it once was. If you read this as a Gemini card, you know, this is in the Suit of Swords. It's really powerful card. It also, I think, if it appears in a reading together, I think it shows clear mind, like the decision that you are making about this relationship or this situation, whatever your choice is that your reading is focused on, at least for a while, it's going to be harmonious and balanced. However, 16 is a related card. And the tarot does this all the time. It gives us this glimpse of peace and harmony, and then it says, well, remember, this is going to fall apart in a second. But nothing lasts forever. And this is why we need the 7 and the courageousness of the 7. We, like fours are peaceful. and stable, and they're good. But if we hang out there too long, we'll rot. And in the sixes, we aren't meant as human beings to just be in this place of, Candyland all the time. Life is full of adventure and challenges and changes, and we only grow through change. We don't grow through stagnation. And I'm not sure that I would ever associate stagnation with the six, but I think the Tower is a reminder that things change. Things change, and we will grow and morph and change through this relationship. And while right now it might seem like it's all unicorns and rainbows, we are going to be need to open to growing and changing together, right? I don't like what the marshmallow has done with the sword and the seven. So that's all I'm going to say. In a traditional Marseille, the sword is upright. It's like the 3 and the 5. It's cutting through the swords, and this makes so much sense for me. Like, this is the chariot. This is the call to action. This is moving forward. This is that decision, that clarity of mind to leave, to go, to travel, to expand. And know that this change that was precipitated by the Tower card is in our highest, and we will grow mentally, intellectually. Our wisdom will flourish. We will find voice. I mean, it'll give you wings. Pick up this sword and you will grow wings. Like, literally. It gives you freedom. It gives you freedom. So, this is a card that causes so much trouble in interpretation. And we talked about this a little bit last week. I think this is where we ended. But as we mentioned last time, this sense of freedom and independence, it's possible that it's for the wrong reasons. And maybe we are running off stealing the family jewels. Who knows? For me, this card often comes up in a question of intellectual property. And you know how sometimes people think it's their right? It's such a difficult area of discussion. And then as far as the decisions and the thoughts and the clarity around this being in connection with a relationship, because this card does come up with relationship. Is he cheating on me? That sort of thing. It also has the flip side of a sense of like freedom, wings, independence out of your current circumstances. And when I remember that, okay, so just bear with me here because I know I'm mixing my metaphors, I'm mixing my traditions. 7 of Swords in Golden Dawn is a lunar decan. 7 is Venus. It's all very cloudy. It's all so not clear. So I think one of the biggest things in this card is that moment of pause. And we see that in the Chariot card. In any traditional Chariot card, the charioteer is not moving. They are paused. They are still. They are stationary. They're thinking about this important situation because it's not clear. We need to take a moment, take a month to figure this out before we go charging ahead recklessly. We need to get our ducks in order. And all that metaphor around the Chariot card about making sure your right side and your left side are balanced and you want to take both sides with you and all that brilliant stuff that's in the Marielle Tarot, it's all really important. And I think that pause is critical. That pause is critical. That is the pause where Arjuna stops and listens to God, listens to Krishna and learns something. So let's go back to this idea about meditation and getting clearer and cutting through the Maya and all of that. Like these moments of stillness and silence, I think they become more important as we progress through the swords. We need to learn to listen. And we have silence in abundance in the Star card. The Star card is about silence. And if we stop and we listen and we, go out into the oasis, find the oasis in the middle of the desert. I mean, that's such a beautiful focus for meditation. Close your eyes and find your oasis. Build the visualization of your oasis in order to find your North Star. I think that's why this doesn't sit very well with me. I want that sword up and down. Welcome, Perry. Okay. I had a really small group for Tarot Foundations too. Clevis and Mary Beth and Sarah and Susie a little bit. And I really enjoyed our discussions of these cards, 8, 9, and 10 of Swords. And if you think about some of the things I've already shared with you here, that the space is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, look at the marshmallow. You can hardly even see the space between the swords. The swords are getting bigger. The energy of the swords is getting bigger, and that spaciousness in the middle is getting smaller. And what do I want to say here? When you drop into meditation, it's almost like I don't have my pointer. I'm going to diverge here. I had a huge not water. It was a medicine in a large glass of water this morning, and I knocked it over, and it went across the table, and my little tray that's over here that's full of decks filled up with water. 3 decks got soaked, and everything on my table. I need to think about that and what that has to do with the full moon and everything that's going on in my life. It was so funny. But why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this. This has to do with, for some reason, I'm telling you this. sharing this with you. When you go into meditation, why my pointer isn't here. In this card, sometimes it feels like there's only this little glimmer of maybe of a third eye, or some sort of tiny little glow in the middle of the space beyond the third eye. And it takes a certain discipline to expand that. So what I'm saying here is that when you go into meditation, you need to have the practice and the discipline to not control, but to know that, in a way, it's a little bit of control, but it's like you allow, better word, allow that space to grow. And these are the thoughts. This is the monkey mind that is crowding your brain, your hearing, your thoughts. And your discipline in meditation is to grow that space in the center. Now, this is only sort of one way of looking at the swords, and there's lots of other ways we can look at the swords, but I think this is powerful. And then Perry mentions the creativity in meditation. I think that's where what I was talking about, like being inspired by the Oasis and the Star card, and using that as a creative place to begin and to wander, rather than just dropping into empty space. You start with creating a visualization. And right, if you can expand the mind and let your wings grow, these swords are going to fall away. They're not going to cut your wings. But you have to have the power to open. I think it's pretty cool to know that we have that. Okay, so what if we're going to look at this from its martial qualities, its war qualities? 7 of Swords. Is it 7? No, we're on 8. 8 of Swords. 8 of Swords. Well, 8 of Swords is also justice. Let's look at that. And Moon. Oh, I like that. Rise out of the quagmire and sore unencumbered. So when you understand 8 of Swords is the sword of justice, doesn't it kind of give you permission to know your thoughts and not be controlled by them? Where's my yoga sutra that I usually leave on here? Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Should be here. There we go. This is a principle in yoga. Yoga, chitta, mind, vritti, disturbances, nirodha, silence. So what is yoga? Yoga is the stilling of the vrittis. Yoga is the stilling of the disturbances. And I think part of the harmony, the adjustment, the balance, the realignment of the karmas that might be associated with justice has to do with taking that sword in hand. Okay, let's go to some. Okay, I'm going to read your comments. The spaces in the middle are smaller. However, the woven pieces are getting bigger and bigger. Structure and order is created. You know, when I say that, I'm thinking about, you know, you go into like downtown and the skyscrapers are all around you. And it's like, do you ever feel claustrophobic when you go downtown? Crowds of wishes and fears press in on the center. I hope for better and plan for the worst. The thoughts are organized as we progress. Allow the calmness to guide through the chaos. So, what is the promise of the moon here? The promise of the moon, if we persevere through these mental challenges. And how does this water card help to clear the mind? I think sometimes we quite literally hear these animals barking and yapping in the mind. And those animals represent those vrittis, those disturbances. And so we need to persevere and find the path through. If you look at this Eight of Swords, there is no path through. There is no sword cutting through. There are areas in Toronto with so many high rises that look like Hong Kong. Yeah. And then Dee reminds us that chaos is the order of the universe. And chaos is what creates change. Perry, light and a familiar marker of time is the magic of the moon in the darkness of the night. Especially now, if you have a clear sky tonight, it's raining and cloudy here, I won't see it, but the night before the full moon, I was awoken by its energy, and I actually moved from my bed to the floor where the light was shining, and I just got a blanket and lay in the moonlight. Like there's powerful energy there to expand awareness. Mm. So think about this. Remember this when you find these cards a little too challenging. And then 9, 9, 9. Everybody's favorite two cards in the tarot. Sadhana says with tongue in cheek. So here, oh, I got the wrong card. That's the 8. There's the 9. Okay. I think we need that upright sword in this card. We need it. We need to remember that we've been holding it since the ace. We have had it. Sometimes we put it down. Sometimes we forget we hold it. And that breakthrough energy, that cutting through energy, means that we need to pick up that sword. Why is it a nightmare card? It's a nightmare card in shadow. it's not a nightmare card. If we pick up the sword and move through it, it's a card of enlightenment. It's a card of awakening. It's about a nightmare turning into a dream of inspiration and vision and clarity. Ooh, I'm going to go back to Dee's comment about the last group of cards. The moon of intuition. She knows the heavens and reminds us we belong to the stars. So it's beautiful. Now, where or how do we know? Like and notice how the sword isn't red here. Now it's yellow. Do you think that might be connected to the energy of the sun and a reminder that we have that energy? We are infused by the energy of the sun. Maybe we need to I want to show you a card. I think I still have it on the table. Okay, see how quickly I can find it for you. I was using the Osho Zen in class this morning, and it has some really brilliant cards. Some disturbing, but some really brilliant cards. Okay, so the card that I was thinking about is this one. And this is what I have always felt the Nine of Swords is about. It's that ability to push through the mental chatter. So, do we need to look at it to use its energy? Do we need to look at it to be inspired by its light, by its energy? The light in the lamp is not as intense. The light of both of these cards means a lot to me in this. This is a brilliant card of inspiration. It's the birth of clarity, cutting open the cage and waking up to unavoidable change. Oh, yes. You guys are so brilliant. Keep the sun at our back and walk in our shadows. Fearlessly walk in our shadows. Or how about trustingly, supportively, with the energy of the sun at our back, courageously walk through our shadows. Right? Now, what about if we bring in that noise metaphor? It's that response and that energy that I think lets us find the stillness once again. But we know it's going to be through a bit of adversity. Clevis, if you put all the swords cards side by side, they look like a rolling circle that keeps going. Oh, yeah. The way that these might turn, right? Okay, let's go to the final card. Okay. For the first time, we have two swords in the center. We're able to, it has this sense, it's a card of completion and the end of the journey of the mind and da 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 da. But we have two, it's like we found balance. We've found harmony. We've learned a new skill. Okay, I'm going to go back just to my list of keywords. Okay, success, completion, failure, excess, extremity, accumulation, dissolution, saturation. So, it goes in both directions. But there's a ripeness, there's a fullness here. And I like this card. I like the power of the two swords. And they also, to me, look a bit like divining rods. Ooh, I like that. I feel like holding those two swords gives a new sense of I've got this. I've got this. And when I look at Patrick Valenza's card, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe those are like long gardening shears, and I've got to cut my way through. But I've got the tools to do that because I have persevered through the ace through the 10. It's quite a bit of mesh to cut through. I don't want to disregard that. But again, we got to think about what the question is here too. So we have little change and really big change. The wheel will turn. Things will look different. And sometimes those changes are very 3D, and other times they take us into completely different dimensions. You might hear a wake-up children's song. You might hear something. Now what year? 2014, maybe 20. When was the Olympics in Whistler? 2010. Maybe it was that year, 2010, 2011. Sitting at the river, Fitzsimmons River. Suzanne was playing the harmonium. I've talked about Suzanne. I just love her groups playing the harmonium. Suzanne Sterling. And we were chanting a Gopala. So Gopala is the name for young Krishna. We were chanting a Gopala mantra. And there was probably about 10, 11, 12 people sitting in the circle next to the river. And the mantra, as they all do, began to take on a life of its own. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, I hear angels chanting the mantra. I heard a chorus. It was not an echo of our voices, it was a different frequency. I heard a chorus chanting the same mantra. Different frequency. And I opened my eyes and I looked around and I looked at everybody else who had their eyes closed and was kind of swaying back and forth. And I thought, does nobody else hear this? It was incredible. It was extraordinary. That was one of my judgment moments where I actually heard the skies open up and the choir of angels singing. Like, this stuff is real. These when the mind gets clear, and this is what I'm saying, like these practices, these meditations and mantras and they can invoke such powerful change and take us to places of trust and clarity that we never knew existed. Okay, let's go to your comments. Okay, let's start up here. Me too, Dee. I am in awe and wonderment at most of my life and this magnificent experience of life unfolding in the mystery. Beautiful. I love all these poetic comments, you three. The person in the Two of Swords in the Waite-Smith deck could be holding these two free swords of the Tarot de Marseille, Ten of Swords. Could be. But instead they lie down and have an acupuncture session. The card represents the hardships of life with a healthy perspective on how to navigate through this process in strength and perseverance. Yeah, pick up those divining rods, pick up those garden shears, and keep going. She considers her options with her eyes closed to the crowd of possibilities. Wow. Well, my friends, thank you. Thank you. And those of you that are watching the playback, I always look so forward to your comments. And I know some of you too come back and add more to the discussion. It's really kind of brilliant. I love all of this. So next week we'll look at some coin cards and start to weave, expand, and maybe I'll bring in some of the majors. Actually, I'll leave the majors until the second coin session, so we can just really look at the art and the balance of the and arrangement of the coins. The arrangements of the coins is so interesting. So we'll have a good look at that. I look forward to it, and I'll see you next week. Take good care of yourselves, and thank you all so much for your contributions. Namaste. Full moon blessings.